Hello and welcome to attaQ. My name is Jakob, I'm your host and you're watching a attaQ episode. This is ZEEON by BeepStreet. The synthesizer sounds absolutely brilliant. For those of you who might not know, BeepStreet was the one who also released Sunrizer synth and the most incredible drum synth to ever hit iOS, Impaktor. As you can see, I've got ZEEON loaded as a standalone unit, but it was actually designed as an audio unit extension. Now, the reason why I don't use it as an audio extension inside, for instance, Cubase's right now, is simply because of this. ZEEON has a step sequencer. Now, the step sequencer is very straightforward to use. Make sure you light up the pen button and then tap on the step where you want to place a note and play a note. And there it is. There's only one thing I don't like with it. When you save your presets, it won't save the sequences you've made with the step sequencer. And I do hope that BeepStreet adds a way of actually doing that, because that would be awesome. So we're gonna begin by locating the preset list, and you can find that one if you tap inside the oscilloscope. That's right, this little box is an oscilloscope, which is incredibly useful when you're tweaking your sounds, because you can instantly see what happens with your waveform when you're tweaking your patch. So to enter the preset list, just tap the oscilloscope and here it is. From this view, you can create your own banks, save your presets inside your banks, and also export your bank through email, which is brilliant. Now, I never get synthesizers for the sounds that they already contain. I get them for the sounds I can make with them. But if you're not like me, don't worry, because ZEEON comes packed with over 140 presets, so you've got plenty to choose from. To exit the preset list, just tap the oscilloscope once more, and we're gonna begin with the layering. But before that, between the layer modes and the oscilloscope, we can find the mono, the poly, and unison modes. And the unison mode actually has more controls inside panel number 2, right there. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, so let's backtrack to panel 1 and let's get into the layering. You see, everything you do with all of these controls that you can see right now can be done inside 2 layers. And right now we're inside layer 1. And if I switch over to layer 2, we will see everything in here change, including what's been done inside the modulation matrix. Brilliant. Right beside the layer buttons, you can find the on and off buttons, so you can essentially turn both layers off and we have no sound. There is actually a way of tweaking both layers at the same time, and you access that mode by pressing the plus sign in the middle here. And now we can see that both layer 1 and layer 2 is lit. And so when I pull a knob here or do a change inside the modulation matrix, then that will change for both layers. Now let's say you've been working on a sound inside layer 1 and you want to duplicate what you've done inside layer 1 into layer 2. And so since there are so many knobs and you might have done so many tweaks, it could be quite time consuming doing that. But you don't have to, because down here we can find a tools button. And here we can copy what's been done in layer 1 to layer 2 or from layer 2 to layer 1. We can even swap the layers around and even clear the matrix. Now inside the tools mode, you can also find an initialized mode. The mix knob mixes the levels between layer 1 and layer 2. Right beside the mix knob, we have the amplifier knob, and this is basically just the global volume out. Right down here, we can find a bypass button for the effects, and the effects, you find them inside panel number 2. So let's head back to panel 1. Next we have the oscillator section. Each of the oscillators have 4 knobs. You've got the transpose knobs together with the fine tuning knob. Next you can find the wave selector, and you've got 3 waveforms to choose from. Triangular wave, a ramp saw wave, and a square waveform. And the square waveform also has a pulse width modulation mode. And right now we're only listening to 1 layer and 1 oscillator, and so we can pull up the level for oscillator 2 inside the mixer here. Now right down here we have different sync modes for the oscillators. We've got a re-triggering mode. We can also find a sync 12 mode and a vintage mode. And the vintage mode will make the oscillators drift as they do in older classical synthesizers. And you have more controls for this mode, and you find those in the second panel. Next we have the mixer, and here you control the volume level outputs for the oscillators. A sub-oscillator, a noise generator, and a blend mode for layer 1. In the middle here we can find the filter. You can also find more control as a bias mode and controls for how the filter reads the filter envelope. Next we have the filter envelope, of course, and lastly the amplifier envelope. In the next section we can find 2 Lfos, and they both have various different types of waveforms to choose from. Now the rate cycle of the Lfo can be set to sync to BPM. It can also be set to a triggering mode, which means the clock cycle of the Lfo will re-trigger every time you hit a key. And then you also have a one-shot mode, basically turning the Lfo more into an envelope type control. In the last window we find the Modulation Matrix, and here you've got 8 slots, and you switch between slots 1 to 4 and 5 and 8 by tapping these buttons right here. Now there are quite some interesting stuff you can use for you to make some really interesting patches, and I do suggest you experiment a lot with sending the different types of noise into the oscillators. Lastly, we've got panel number 2, and apart from the global voice settings like the unison, the vintage oscillator mode, and the global pitch, we have the effects. And I am not gonna get into explaining how a chorus or a phaser or a delay or a reverb works. The effects are here and they sound great. Now all of this makes ZEEON a very powerful synthesizer. I've put an app link down in the description so you can go check out ZEEON yourself. Thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. I've also got a Patreon page, so if you want to support creativity, good content here on YouTube, and great reviews such as this one, then why not join up on Patreon? Now, if you don't want to do Patreon, then I've also got a PayPal me link, so you can do a one-off donation if you'd rather do that. Now, if PayPal or Patreon isn't your cup of tea, then you can always share my videos, press the thumbs up, it sure helps with the ratings around here, and if you subscribe, don't forget to press in that little bell thing, because that way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go and finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.